Hello everyone, I am Anna Mosca, poet and photographer. I'm from Arcori in Italy since before my birth, in the sense that I have known this area from before my arrival because of the countless stories of my ancestors that have been handed over to me since I was a child. I am the eldest, therefore I had both great-grandparents and grandparents, many voices around me, so many stories. This crown of descendants described to me the territory in their own words, and even today, when I pass by certain areas around here, their stories resonate within me. In this case, words have served to preserve memory. Words, say the sacred texts, and science, nowadays confirms it, produce a sound, and the sound extends into space and stays there. Words are eternal in substance. They exist and persist over time and space. No wonder words are one of my favorite artistic languages. Indeed, it's my language of choice. Poetry has always been present in my drawings, sketchbooks, paintings, and especially in conceptual art. I began with writing my dreams that were often more elaborated of my daily life, and that led me to a deeper and deeper search, providing me with a good practice of writing and, above all, of the vision of what is other. The stories of my grandparents were a different travel exercise as well. I was here and now, and I was there with them on those long journeys on foot of the little girl grandmother going to get the milk, as well as for the bombings during the war, the military airport of Arcore, and so on. I began to experience, even then, what happens to the soul when it is stimulated in the present and it moves beyond time. I began to realize I could hear differently with a part of me unidentified but extremely present and real. It wasn't a simple listening through the ears, but an empathic listening, a being there, being present. It was traveling space and time, the mean of choice, words. Meanwhile, I grew up also within myself and through experiences and travels. I insisted to attend the School of Art in Monza, and then I went to Milan. From Milan to Tokyo, from Tokyo to San Francisco, then London, then Paris, then Milan again, and every possible country around. Even then, it was expression through images, photographs taken of me, and not being able to paint while traveling left me with writing, reading, especially with the study of my inner space. I never stopped my search, artistic and spiritual, because for me the answers lie in being on the road, being a continual metamorphosis, moving without moving. I discovered that to have found means to accept us being on the move, an ethereal, liquid motion covering the seasons of being. This is the focal point of my research: space. The space within us and outside of us, which is not a frantic search, to be clear, but a pleasant trip in and out of what we are. Images speak to me and tell stories. In photography, what interests me is once again space. The space between things, what creates the composition, the skeleton that supports the visual language. I held several professorships of photography at the Academy of Arts in Milan on language and composition, communication, photographic history, stories in picture, reportage, etc. What was important to me was to teach students not so much the technicality of the means to be used, which is rather obsolete nowadays, but the grammar necessary to make an effective and memorable photographic composition. To teach about the human eye's laws that guide our reading of images. Our eyes read the negative space at an unconscious level much more than they read the subject that seeks to dominate the picture. The composition is more effective at the level of communication of the subject itself. A whole new science has developed with laws that extends from the rule of thirds to the golden rule, explaining how the eye moves to arrive, to read, and then leave again the image. It's easy to conclude that we are made for a continuous movement. The composition set on a spiral, similar to a winding staircase, is the most effective. It arrives at the center and from the center moves back outside. The image where the eye does not move dies there. We get bored and is soon forgotten, while in short, the image that evokes a movement, which is the soul motion, continues to resonate within us and call us back to it. Almost 3 years ago, I quit the Fine Arts Academy teaching to devote myself exclusively to poetry. For this to happen, I found myself on a plane to the desert of California, landing in the scorching heat, and there I was in this space, finally infinite, so similar to our potential, to the space within us. Above all, I found myself in an intense expanse of silence, where words had their due weight, their right sound, their proper latitude in the atmosphere. I realized that I came to a point of arrival and of departure. So I came back to Italy, where I concluded my engagements with the Art Academy of Milan, where I had been teaching for 8 years, photography, and I started from there, with minimalist poems, simple and light in appearance, who carried actually a new wealth and the weight of revelation. Space and silence have never scared me. On the contrary, have always attracted me. Perhaps space and silence are a nearby dimension to dreams, where anything can happen, and where sounds have a different volume. In addition, there is light. In the desert, the light necessary to see each other is blinding. But we know white is the wholeness of colors. White is the place where everything exists. Loving silence is a requirement for the journey within oneself. Silence is the path that leads to revelation, to listening. In the silence of the desert, we must recognize our own thoughts, quite noisy and often inconvenient, needing not to be afraid to hear them, as it happens to us in everyday life, and finding ways to give to them the right weight as to silence those that distract us. A Zen walk. in a nutshell. The circle is closed by entering silence and light with a long walk into the soul. Today's poems speak of inner space, a journey that has taken me to know a little better this invisible territory. The journey in the desert is a metaphor of the vast space inside us, of that tiny breath residing within us that leaves the body with death, but doesn't stop being. We do wrong when we focus on the material, when it is the ephemeral that holds things together. There has also been a shift in the format of my photographic research from rectangular to square, perhaps out of boredom and to have new visual challenges in which I could play with the negative spaces in a new way. I abandoned for this new cycle my clean and sharp style for a vintage style, evocative of a memory, of a dream, carrying a certainty of a life to revisit. The new poems have a lot of white space around, which supports a few chosen words that evoke images, visions, emotions. Using the absence of punctuation and unusual new lines allows us the desire to go back to the image, to the words, several times and to reinterpret a verse a second or a third time. Why not? These poems are malleable tools to the soul and to the eye, but they require the intervention of the reader. They are no fast food poems, rather food to chew on slowly. What the eye does in photography, going back over the spiral movement, I apply to these poems. Take your time to read them, to readjust a text according to your own experience, to your own making. The portal to the infinite, to our never-ending being, is that small space inside, that little silence we run into before the dream, the one we salute before waking, when we go back, being small, to live our daily life. Let me now read you some poems from my textbook, California Notebook, written in the desert of the Coachella Valley in Southern California. This book is dedicated to those souls whose flesh is too tight, to those whose dreams seems to be real and reality seems to be a dream. I have seen rain stepping on the sea, incessantly tapping, not able to carve ancient holes as on rocks, because it was welcome. It was welcome. Where I live now is very hot. It's the dry desert. Mountains encircle the valley where the rainbows lay for short breaks on periodically sprinkled grass. Eternity roams inside me. I can't help but travel, forever wandering the mind and space, on earth as in dreams, seeking some order, chasing the waters, harmony to fill me, deep from the inside to make me a lake, Alice, at home. Me, decorated with an unexpected smile. I now expect little and leave the moment, exploring while passing over. I have quit detaining. I let motion be falling, having no more addresses, pinheads, or pencils. I found myself delighted in the last 3 lines. Early morning, everyone works to make the land more beautiful. Sprinklers sing, water jumping up in the air, birds grooming their songs, elderly women with rolls walking their poodles, old pickup trucks filled with new flowers to plant, slowly driving by. I pick up words as small daisies on a spring field, careful to hold them in small bunches, never as beautiful as when first spotted, a memory of wonder, blushing as they close around their meaning, covering the heart, shy of a truth, near enough for our dull spirit to remember a note or two. Some poems long to be gardens, or more likely lakes, enclosed and safe, ideal for thinking, suitable for letting go, where even silence is guarded precious, embracing, yet leaving time out, somehow a small palpitation held between hands. The sun rests on my hair on a winter afternoon, hours fleeting, rushing into the calm evening, not daring to go inside, subtracting myself from grace. I keep my head down, bowed, as I write between letters my emotions. Stand always at the beginning of things. Keep that attitude as your compass in life. You are never at the end. It will never be the end of the world, but always, for us, the beginning of anything new. Da-da-da-da, 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 da-da-da-da.